What's happening? Thanks for joining me as always. It is very much appreciated. So here's the deal. This is your Wednesday podcast. I am currently driving my way back to the Northeast. So this is your Wednesday podcast that I am taping on Tuesday night at 9:36 p.m. Eastern time. So don't get on me in case something breaks on Wednesday morning or late Tuesday night. It is what it is. Logistically, got to do what I got to do in the car tomorrow. Driving on the way back home. So here is your Wednesday podcast taped on a Tuesday night. So do not send super chats. Do not send any super chats because I will not get them because this is recorded. So I appreciate the sentiment if you wanted to send a super chat, but it is not going to be worthwhile with this podcast. So appreciate every single one of you. And while I talk about appreciating every single one of you, we surpassed 4,500 subscribers since Monday's podcast, and that's all because of your support. Thank you, every single one of you, for that support. The next goal is 5,000. We can get there. Let's keep cranking these Patriots podcasts on Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays. We'll have more Drake Maye thoughts on this podcast. We will have grades from the local writers about Drake Maye. What did they see from him? And also some Patriots leftovers from that Texans game. But let's start with Drake Maye. And let's look at some of these evaluations from Patriots beat writers. And we begin with Evan Lazar. Evan Lazar had Drake Maye down for 12-plus plays, 9 minus plays. Andrew Callahan of the Herald had Drake Maye's grade as an A- from Sunday. Greg Bedard, my buddy Greg, was a little bit more rough on Drake Maye. Greg's a tough grader, as we know. 11-plus plays, 17 minus plays. If you want to know why Greg's eval was what it was, you can check out the podcast I did with him today, Greg Bedard's Patriots podcast. Greg went through a number of the plays and why he had graded Drake Maye the way that he graded him. Me, I'd say it was at least a solid B. At least a solid B from Drake Maye. I probably would not go into the A category because you need to be pretty damn good for the A category. So I'd give him a solid B. Solid B for the first start of his NFL career. I look at the level of competition, the team that he faced, right? The expectations that we had, some of the things that were not under his control, like no run game, an offensive line that got injured yet again, the early adversity that he was able to overcome. So I would give Drake a B. That's my grade. What is your grade? Throw a comment in as you watch this podcast. We can all agree, I think, that Maye made some splash plays, and we talked about those on Monday. He showed his athleticism. He showed his arm talent, and there's no doubt that Maye has a much higher ceiling than Jacoby Brissett and has a higher ceiling than a lot of quarterbacks that come out of the draft. That's why he was drafted 3rd overall. And the talent was there. It was apparent, and that's why I was encouraged, and that's why you were encouraged, many of you. And he does bring hope for the future. There's no doubt about that. Hope after the Houston game, I think all of us felt that and felt encouraged by Drake Maye's performance on Sunday against the Texans. So let's break down some of these things. Let's dig deeper into Drake Maye's start against the Houston Texans, and let's start with his decision-making. Evan Lazar wrote about Maye's decision-making. Here's what he wrote. It's encouraging that he had a positive net rating, but even more so was the fact that only 3 of Maye's 9 minus plays were decisions. So the minus plays for Evan were some of those erratic throws, right? His inaccuracies. But as far as the decision-making, Evan liked a lot of what he saw. Greg Bedard somewhat disagreed, said that Maye's eyes are not always in the right place, quick to run, and sometimes runs into pressure. So Bedard saw some of those decisions not as good as Evan saw some of those decisions. The biggest question for me, and I think the biggest question for all of us right now, is what can Drake Maye improve upon as he continues to play? I said this back at 98.5 The Sports Hub. I don't think that you go to Maye to then pull Maye and put Brissett back into a game unless there's an injury. This is Drake Maye's team now. You can't put the young man out there and then pull him. You can't play those games. This is his football team. This is ride or die with Drake Maye this season. You chose that when you decided to play him against Houston, so he's in there and he's going to play. And so what can he improve upon What can he get better at as he continues to play? Right? What can he see out there? And while he's playing week after week after week, show progression. I think that's the biggest question because you can't improve upon everything all at once. So let's go through some of these possibilities where May could improve, and then maybe in some others that he might not be able to improve during the season. Blitz protection. So there was a play where Drake Maye moved Jermichael Hasty to the wrong spot. He had Hasty and Henry on the same side, did not provide help to Trey Jacobs at right tackle. And because of that, he had a one-on-one. You got a one-on-one with Jacobs. I think it was Danielle Hunter. It was either Hunter or Anderson. And you had that pocket collapse. That play, I believe, ended up with Vidarian Lowe getting rolled up on. So that type of decision by Drake before the snap of the football, he should improve upon. He should understand where the blitzes are coming. He should understand who needs help. He should understand where his chip is coming from already. So he should improve upon that type of play, understanding the protection, understanding what he can do to help his offensive line out when he's at the line of scrimmage. Don't forget, at North Carolina, it's not like May was making a ton of adjustments at the line of scrimmage. That's not what they did. So this is all new to him. He's been doing it since he was drafted, but this is still pretty new to him. So his ability to understand what's happening in front of him, where he's getting his pass protection from, where he's getting maybe the chips from, and make sure that he aligns running backs, tight ends in the right spots to help his offensive line when they need help, especially the tackles. So that's something that you watch and you feel like he will get a better grasp of what's going on and he will improve on that type of thing as the season goes and as he's out there playing live and reacting to some of these moments. Should improve there with some game reps. The mechanics. The mechanics are still inconsistent. Bedard wrote physically, the May that he saw on Sunday did not look vastly improved over what we saw over the summer. Footwork was still clunky at times. Motion was long and slow at times. Bedard wrote, I wouldn't say May has been overhauled and is now definitely ready for this. Andrew Callahan wrote, a closer look at the film revealed familiar bugs in May's game, missing a couple layup throws and inconsistent footwork. So there you've got Callahan, you've got Bedard both saying the footwork was still a little bit loose. And he had some happy feet in the pocket at times when he did not need to have the happy feet. And he didn't really set himself up to throw the football consistently with those mechanics. So you still see some of those issues. You still see some of those things propping themselves out there for the world to see. And, that was my biggest concern if you decided to start Drake Maye too early is would we see regression? So we know Bedard sees it, Callahan sees it. The footwork, some of those fundamental mechanic issues are still existing. And now you got to make sure they don't get worse through the season. Because if he starts to regress, that would be my concern about him turning the football over, him not feeling comfortable. Everything starts to kind of fall downhill. And then all of a sudden in the next month and a half, 2 months, we're watching a rookie quarterback look like the guy who came into the league day one. I do not want to see that regression. So that's my biggest issue right now as we get ready to continue to watch Drake Maye the rest of this season. Can he stay ahead of the game when it comes to the footwork, when it comes to the mechanics? Some of this stuff, he hasn't been able to fix it fully just yet. It's going to be very, very difficult to fix those types of things during the season because now you're in your work week. You're game planning for the next team. You're going over the film. You're on the practice field. And you're trying to get ready for that next week, that next opponent. And it's very difficult to set aside a bunch of time to work on things like your throwing motion and your footwork. That's why quarterbacks have quarterback coaches during the offseason. And they go visit these quarterback coaches and they work on those types of things, those fundamental things. So in season, it's going to be incredibly challenging for Drake Maye to get better at some of these mechanical issues that have popped up. You just hope they don't regress to the point of, man, oh man, he's kind of scattershot all over the place now, and we can't take all sorts of time to the side and fix that. He's got to be ready to go week after week after week after week. And then you get to the offseason, then you get to the quarterback coaching, then you get to the footwork stuff again. Because now it's all preparing for the game. That next week. That's what it's about. So hopefully we don't see that regression. Hopefully the heat from the pass rush doesn't get to him. And hopefully he's able to remain steady and at least be at this level for the rest of the year. If he's able to stay at this level for the rest of the year, then you feel pretty good about his chances of going into the offseason, working full time on these fundamental things. And then by 2025, when he hits camp, he does look like a new guy. He does look like he's mostly overhauled. It also is obvious that, some of the stuff we heard from sources in the building saying that Maye had taken big steps with the footwork. And, it wasn't that he was a different guy, but he was ahead of where they thought he would be. Maybe some of that stuff was puffed up. Maybe not. But when you watch the first game, the first start, and we saw it in the Jets game too, some of that footwork being wonky, and even AVP came out post-Jets game and said that some of the footwork was clunky. We still see that. So it doesn't feel like there was this massive change for Maye. Can he get better? Did he get better? He might have gotten slightly better. But some of those reports might have been a little shaky, not from the reporters themselves, but the information that was being given to the reporters. Maybe some of that stuff was being leaked out there so fans and others could feel better about Maye. And people did not want to leak out there that Maye was, still working heavily on the fundamental stuff that Van Pelt and others were supposed to iron out before he stepped foot on a field for a game that matters. So we have to keep an eye on that, a close eye on the mechanics, because that is my biggest concern. And the mechanical issues lead to the inaccuracies. The inaccuracies led to some minuses from Evan Lazar and others. So that's why he misses some of those throws. Sometimes he misses throws that he shouldn't miss because of those mechanics, because of the footwork. So we still have to continue to keep an eye on that. And look, it might be possible, and I've said this, it might be possible where Maye just is going to struggle at times with certain throws. And he might not end up being the most accurate quarterback of all time. And you got to live with some of that. You got to live with some of the not so good because the ceiling is so high. And he also makes plays that other quarterbacks don't make very often, if at all. So there's some give and take here with Drake Maye. We've said that from the beginning. But we got to keep a close eye on that inaccuracy being tied together with the mechanics and whether or not he can make sure he stays at that stable spot and doesn't start to fall back and regress. All right. Before we continue, don't forget, do a few things for us. This is how we get to 4,500 subscribers. Don't forget to like the podcast as you watch on YouTube. All the likes mean the world to us. More likes means more eyeballs. And, of course, you throw a comment in the window. How do you feel about Drake Maye? Now that you've had a couple of days to think about it, you've read some things, you're listening and watching me. How do you feel about Drake Maye a couple of days removed from that Houston game? So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Like, comment, subscribe. Spotify, Apple Pods, rate, and review. I know the Wi-Fi might be a little bit sketchy here, going off of a hotspot to try to make it better. Hopefully it's not terrible. Hopefully it improves as we go here. But I do want to let you know I've tried to fix these problems as best as I can, but I'm on the road. This is part of what happens. We only have one more show tonight to get through. So by Friday and also by Thursday night, Crafts and Kickoffs, my NFL podcast, I'll be back at the homestead. The internet should be much better and much more dependable. So hopefully it's not terrible for you guys and gals watching, listening to this. Hopefully, keep my fingers crossed. All right, let's get to Alex Van Pelt. He's a big part of this, right? Because not only does this fall on Drake Maye, it falls on Van Pelt. It falls on the entire offensive operation. And that begs the question, was Van Pelt good on Sunday? Did Van Pelt set up Maye to succeed? Kind of a mixed bag from Van Pelt. The shotgun, we talked about this, more shotgun for Maye, which was good to see because Maye is more comfortable in shotgun. So that was good, less under center. There were some more RPOs and play action that we saw with Maye than we saw with Jacoby Brissett. That was good. But there were some issues as well. There were some issues. First, we'll start with Andrew Callahan. He wrote, Van Pelt authored a solid game plan for Maye, opening with 3 play-action passes on his first 5 dropbacks, simplify reads, create throwing lanes. He also put Maye on the move to steer him away from Houston's pressure, which only reached Maye twice in the Pats' first 4 possessions. Overall, the Pats finished with a 62.5% success rate when passing on first down, a sign of effective play calling against basic early down defensive looks. The chief criticism stands. Callahan writes, too many ISO routes for wide receivers who struggle to separate. Kurt Warner, he posted about Drake Maye's first start. And he posted, I know it was Maye's first start, but the film was a tough watch between the bad spacing and simplicity of concepts they had. Tough to succeed that way unless just superior playmakers. So both Callahan and Warner, and I know that Bedard has said some of this as well, they look at what Van Pelt is calling, they look at the game plan, and yes, again, why I call it a mixed bag, there were things that Van Pelt brought to the game against Houston which helped Maye. The shotgun, the play action, moving him within the pocket. We all talked about that on Friday before the game on Sunday. Some of those things that AVP could do to help his quarterback. But still, the offense overall was a little stagnant when you look at these routes that are being run. Just a lot of isolation routes, just one-on-one, guys trying to beat the corner across from them. And the Patriots, they don't have the greatest receivers that consistently can beat that man coverage, can beat that corner. Now, Kayshon Boutte did it once, maybe twice, right? Jalen Polk is somebody who is not known as the most incredible separator. He has gained some separation. He's been open more than people might believe, but now he's got the hands issue that you got to worry about. Pop Douglas was very good separating on Sunday against safeties, and you hope that, safeties, nickelbacks, those kinds of players that get stuck on Pop, that Pop can continue to do that damage. But there's still way too many one-on-one isolation routes. What do we mean by a lack of creativity? What do we mean when we talk about too many isolated routes, a little bit too stagnant? And what could AVP do to fix those problems? Well, there's a few things. When you look at creatively finding opportunities to give your receivers separation, there are a few things. Rub routes, right? Mesh routes, rub routes. Run more rub routes. Something that the Patriots haven't done much. I don't know why. They just haven't done it a lot. Those routes will help guys get open. Those pick plays, right? Pick plays, rub routes, whatever you want to call them. You can run more of those to help your receivers out. You can also, we've been talking about this for weeks now, you can also utilize motion more. Motion before the snap, motion at the snap. Patriots still not utilizing a ton of motion at the snap. That can be better. That can improve. And that causes the defense to try to figure out what you're doing, the misdirection stuff, right? So more motion and throw some pick routes out there. Throw some pick plays out there. At least show some of that stuff. Bunch formations. You can run more bunch formations instead of, going one-on-one. These shotgun empty sets where it's just wide receiver across from cornerback, 1, 2, 3, 4. You can do something different. You can do a bunch formation to the right, a bunch formation to the left. Try to cause some hysteria. Try to cause some chaos from the secondary of the opposition. And there has not been enough of that by Van Pelt. Just not enough of it. And we've also talked about Van Pelt not helping the tackles enough. And I'll continue to scream that at the top of my lungs as I turn blue in the face, that Van Pelt is not helping his 4th, 5th left tackle, his 3rd or 4th right tackle. He's not helping those guys enough. In one-on-one situations against some of the best pass rushing defensive ends in football is not a good idea. And we saw it hurt them against San Francisco. We saw it hurt them against Houston. Van Pelt needs to help out his tackles more. It defies all logic. It defies all common sense that he has not done that. That's got to change. All right, let's dig deeper into Drake Maye versus pressure and versus the blitz. Jerry Thornton from Barstool posted, according to Pro Football Focus, passer rating when facing a blitz. Jacoby Brissett in the first 5 weeks, his passer rating against the blitz was under 59. It was 58.8. Drake Maye against Houston, against the blitz, his passer rating was 99.2. 99.2. I mean, we're talking about eons better than what Brissett was doing against the blitz. Evan Lazar wrote about it. Maye performed well against the blitz. Houston blitzed Maye 11 times. Maye was 6 of 10 for 113 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. His 11.3 yards per pass attempt versus the blitz was once again a season high for the Patriots, as was that passer rating. Callahan on Maye versus pressure, not just the blitz, but pressure, 7 of 11 for 90 yards. He had 4 sacks taken, 12 rushing yards. Bedard would tell you at least 3 of those sacks, he thinks they were on Drake Maye. Lazar on Maye versus man coverage. Again, we talk about blitz. We talk about pressure. Defenses do that when they can play man. They stack their corners against your receivers, and they say, beat us. We don't think you can. And so through the first 5 weeks, you saw a lot of this, and Brissett was incapable of really burning teams when they went to man coverage. And it's not always on the receivers, right? Brissett, sometimes he would have to wait for his receiver to get open. He'd have to see it before he threw it. And there was one throw to Jalen Polk in this game against Houston where Maye, he anticipated that Polk would be open, and he just threw the football. It was against man coverage, and he just threw the football. Now, Polk dropped it, but he still made that throw. And that's a throw that I don't think Brissett makes. So when you look at some of these numbers, man coverage, again, thanks to Evan Lazar for these numbers that he posted at Patriots.com. Man coverage rate, first 5 games of the year, defenses played man almost 39% of the time. Houston played man 31% of the time. So almost an 8% drop in the amount of man coverage that the Patriots offense faced on Sunday versus the first 5 weeks. When man coverage was deployed, passing yards per game, the first 5 weeks with Brissett, 49.6 yards per game. So less than 50 yards per game against man coverage the first 5 weeks. Drake Maye more than doubled that with 110 yards against man coverage, and the booty touchdown, of course, accounted for a chunk of that. Passing average, 9.2 for Drake Maye. Jacoby Brissett, first 5 weeks, passing average per pass attempt against man coverage was 4.6. So Drake Maye doubled the passing average per attempt against man coverage. And then when you look at EPA, expected points added per drop back, Brissett was a minus 0.4. Drake Maye was a minus 0.02. So Drake Maye against man coverage was much better than Jacoby Brissett had been the first 5 weeks against man coverage. And that can change a lot of the dynamics. If that continues, the defense is going to react. And if the defense reacts and they're not as confident in playing man coverage, which means they can't be as aggressive up front with their pressures and their blitzes, then what's that going to do? That's going to create an opportunity for the Patriots' run game, because now you're going to have defenses that are playing lighter boxes. They're not attacking downhill against the run because they're not as aggressive. They're not stacking that box as much. So against lighter boxes, because they can't play man as much, that will open up the door for you to run the football more. And hopefully you get Stevenson back healthy and you get this run game going a little bit against those lighter boxes. It will also open up Drake Maye read option, right? Zone read plays where Maye can keep the football and gain some yardage with his athleticism. Those plays will open up a little bit more. I remain encouraged about Drake Maye. And I think there are going to be some openings, and we'll talk about this on Friday. There should be openings against the Jaguars defense on Sunday. But I remain encouraged. There's a little bit more of the Drake Maye eval from his first start. All right. I got some other leftovers from the Houston game I want to get to. Before I get to those, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe for us here at the YouTube channel. If you like what we do, tell your friends, family, fellow Patriots fans, co-workers, whoever. Tell those people about us. Spread the word. Like, comment, subscribe, rate and review at Spotify, Apple Pods. Again, hopefully this Wi-Fi isn't awful and we're able to get through this thing. I can't do much more than I've already done. So hopefully it's not awful and you're enjoying the content here. Recorded on Tuesday night to play for you on Wednesday afternoon, which means don't send those super chats. All right. Some other things from that Houston game. The coaching has to improve. The coaching has to improve. You know, we're now heading into week 7. And I ask you, what is this team's identity? What's the team's identity? What do they want to do? And what have they actually improved in doing, right? They said they wanted to be a running football team. They haven't run the football enough. And then on Sunday, they couldn't run the football. So they're not a run-first team. So what are they? What is the identity? Defensively, do they know if they want to play more man or more zone? They started playing, a big chunk of zone through the first 4 or 5 weeks. They played more man on Sunday. Jonathan Jones had a rough day on Sunday playing man. Was that just a bad matchup for Jonathan Jones, or is Jonathan Jones a little bit more susceptible than we thought he was going to be? So what is this team? What do they want to be on both sides of the football? I don't think we have found that out yet. And again, week 7, we've been through the trial period. The first month or so is the trial period. We are through that. You need to identify what you do well and continue to do it well. And this team, they are either struggling to identify what they do well, or they just can't do anything well, or they're not leaning in on what they do well enough. And so when we look at this, what's improved, right? The penalties are still bad. The offense in the first quarter and a half wasn't great. The same mistakes being made. Not chipping against, pass rushers, as I've mentioned, helping your offensive tackles out. Same mistakes. We see that again from Alex Van Pelt. Defensive run fits from DeMarcus Covington. They're not getting better. Back-to-back, 190-plus rushing yards. That's abominable. Figure it out. They're undisciplined. The penalties week after week. And in 3 of the last 4 games, they've had slow starts. Down 14-0 against Houston last week, right? You go back to the Jets game. They got down, I think it was 14-3 to the Jets. They got down to the Niners quickly. And this is not a team that they might be a little bit better when it comes to trying to fight back when down. But this is not the kind of team that you want to get down, 10, 14, 17 points. So we keep seeing this stuff. The slow starts for the most part, the flags week after week, the defensive run fits, some of the trouble tackling, the not helping the offensive tackles. These things have to be corrected. And you can't go 2, 3, 4 weeks in a row without correcting them. Well, I guess you can, but it's not good. There's another issue going on here. And the offense works better when Pop Douglas is in the game. He's their best wide receiver. But I mentioned this going back 3, 4 weeks ago. And the problem remains. The Patriots have been more effective in 12 personnel as a team. But when they play 12 personnel, 2 tight ends, when they're in 2 tight end sets, Pop Douglas is off the field because they want to run out of those 12 personnel groupings. And Douglas is not a blocker. He's not a big guy. So what's happening here is the most effective team offense that you run, the groupings that you run are 12 personnel, but your best wide receiver is not out there when you're running those groupings. So to get Pop Douglas out on the field, you go away from your top personnel grouping. You got to figure that out. You either have to go less 12 personnel and figure out how you can get more out of the offense, or try to figure out a way to get Pop Douglas out there with 2 tight ends, which is going to be very, very difficult, but that is still a problem. Pop's not getting as many snaps because they are running 2 tight ends out there. And so, again, it goes to identity. It goes to what do you want to do well and lean in on that. Marte Mapu, let's get to the good. Marte Mapu showing up. Nice pass breakup in the end zone that resulted in the Marcus Jones interception. And Mapu has taken on a lot of responsibilities since he got thrown into the deep end a couple weeks ago. And he's, communicating with the defense with the green dot. He's doing a lot of different things in that first game. This last game, he's playing, a good amount of snaps. He's making some plays. And Mapu, I like what I see so far. Can he stay healthy is the biggest question. But I think if you're watching Mapu the last 2 weeks, his first 2 games of the year, you walk away feeling pretty good about what he's done. And there could be absolutely a player there if he can stay healthy. Jaquelin Roy, who's a defensive lineman, not many people know about him. You walk into a bar and you ask your fellow Patriots fan, who the hell is Jaquelin Roy? The person might look at you sideways, but he had a sack against Houston, and he's made a couple of plays. So Patriots might have found a guy that can help that defensive line and help that depth out. We'll see how he progresses moving forward. I wonder if the Patriots are going to change some of the personnel. And the first guy I'm looking at is Raekwon McMillan. He's been straight up bad in like 3 of the last 4 games. Ever since Juwan Bentley went out with that injury, McMillan was the guy who drew, the first shot at replacing him, and he has not been good. He has not been good, not nearly enough out of Raekwon McMillan. So do you go to Christian Ellis and play him more? Do you slide Mapu down to linebacker more? Do you play Duggar in the box more going downhill? They got to figure something out because McMillan is not playing good enough, and he is absolutely not playing well enough against the run. He is one of the key reasons why their run defense has been as bad as it's been the last 2 weeks. So will it be Ellis? Will it be Mapu? Will it be Duggar? What are they going to do on that second level? Can you get more out of Sione Takitaki? Look, it's his first game back. I did not expect a ton from him. Hopefully he gets back into shape and gets comfortable, and we see a little bit more of him, and he can make a difference. But they've got to find the answer. They can't just keep playing McMillan and hoping that he wakes up and is a better player and does things at a much higher level than he's done them the last month. You gotta change it up. You gotta figure it out. You gotta go to a plan B or a plan C because you're getting murdered on the ground. You just can't keep throwing that guy out there. Keion White, I mentioned this on Friday. Keion White had to have a bounce-back game. He had a bounce-back game against Houston. He played well. He got some pressure on the quarterback. There were a couple plays here and there. He got absolutely just smoked on a run play, got taken out. But, quarterback pressure, some impact plays. Keion White looked better against Houston than he had looked since really, week 2 of the season. So that was great to see Keion White's presence again out there on the field. Coming up, we've got tomorrow night, Thursday night, Crafts and Kickoffs, my NFL podcast. You don't want to miss that. We'll talk about Tom Brady having ownership with the Vegas Raiders now. 2 big wide receiver trades, Devontae Adams, Amari Cooper, were traded today. We'll talk about that on Thursday night, 7 p.m., Crafts and Kickoffs. I have a craft beer, and we talk football. It's that easy right here on the YouTube channel, live at 7 p.m. Eastern. Friday, we got the Jaguars preview. Started to dig into some of those numbers tonight, and can't wait to break that game down. I think the Patriots are going to have some opportunities against Jacksonville. That's coming up on Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to comment. Don't forget to help us out by subscribing. We've passed 4,500 subscribers. Next goal is now 5,000 subscribers. Can we do it? I think we can do it. Can we do it before Thanksgiving? I hope we can do it before Thanksgiving. So like, comment, subscribe, rate, and review. Back on Friday for that Jags preview at 3 p.m. Eastern. Until then, be well. This has been the Nick Cattle Show.